Hello, this is Jerry Beal again, and I'd like to put on here first of all that as I've always said, my video isn't working, but my audio works pretty good, and that's all I wanted you to do is hear what I'm saying anyway. Okay, what I'm trying to do is find the best presentation I can make to make things the clearest, the best, and the fastest way through this whole thing. I'm trying to help people understand humanity's thought reversal problem and how we're locked up in humanity's thought reversal problem. So here's an example. I've used the same example. We're going to study it really well in this one, and you'll be able to see. I want you to be aware that you are making a mistake, and it's likely that you've never heard of this mistake before, but you will see it. You'll see the mistake here, and it will be the first time in your life that you've ever noticed this mistake, because if you had noticed it before, you'd have, or at least noticed it enough, you would have done something about it. You wouldn't have just went on the way you are. And you are like around what I figure 95% of the whole of humanity. Our whole entire human family is caught up in this thought reversal problem, where I think the 5% are mostly the strictly raised Buddhists in the countries, in the Eastern countries, and so I would say it's more like 98% of the population of the United States that is caught up in this thought reversal problem without even understanding it at all. And so we're trying to solve our problems when we don't even know what the hell is causing what when it comes to our feelings and experiences of life. Okay, here's a short example that I often use. A farmer who also likes playing golf arrives at a golf course just as it starts raining pretty hard. He turns to his buddy and he says, "This rain is upsetting me." His buddy replies, "But you've got crops in the ground that are benefiting a lot from this good rainstorm." At that, the farmer golfer thinks for a moment, and then he says, "Yeah, you're right about that. I forgot about my crops soaking up this good rain, and so now the rain is making me happy instead of making me upset as it was before." Okay, did you get that? So this guy believes both of his two completely different feeling experiences came from the same cause, the raining event. And so would you. You'd believe the same thing. When it's raining pretty hard, it sure isn't fun to be trying to have fun trying to play golf in the rain. So the raining event is upsetting me seems as sure a situation as anything else we would ever think about. And secondly, the rain watering the farmer's crops, especially if the farmer is a dry farmer, or even the fact that irrigation can be pretty darned expensive for farmers, and the rain would be like free irrigation. And so the rain watering his crops would surely overshadow his trip to the golf course, and it would surely seem like it made him happy instead, as he thought. So think about it. Would you bet me $1,000 if I told you that I can prove that the raining event had nothing at all to do with him feeling upset the first time and happy the second time? Would you bet me $1,000 on that if I told you that the rain had nothing to do with it, and that his feeling experiences came from a completely different cause source than the raining event? A completely different source. Would you bet me $1,000 that I was incorrect about that? What on earth could it be? Does it make sense to you that he would get two different experiences from the same cause? I might ask you, who's ever asked that question? Who has ever asked a question like that? How can you get two different experiences from the same cause? Or that two different people can get two different experiences from the same cause? Of course it makes sense. The rain makes me upset. Now the rain makes me happy. Of course that makes sense. But only because you probably never heard of a defining mind context. A defining mind context. Or at least you've never considered it independent of what happened. And that's the key issue here. We ever so commonly add those two together and come out with just the material aspect, as in that made me upset. So consider another example here. While you're thinking of that, consider another example. A short one. The final game of the World Series of Baseball just ended for this year. The fans are exiting the stadium. A reporter asks a particular fan who seems very happy, "Why are you so happy?" And the fan answers, "I'm happy because of the results of the game." It's almost a silly question, isn't it? If you see somebody happy, they say, "I'm happy because of how the game came out, the results of the game." Then the reporter asks a fan that seems sad or dejected, "Why are you sad or dejected?" And the fan answers, "I feel sad because of the results of the game." Again, it almost seems like a silly question to be asking. He's sad because of the results, the way the game came out. So both of them are either crediting or blaming the same cause, the results of the game, for causing them two completely different experiences with no one around to question such things. Again, what else on earth could the cause of each of those fans' feeling experiences be other than the results of the game? The actual cause, however, is always and only how each of them interpreted the results of the game. Hear that? The actual cause, however, is always and only how each of them interpreted the results of the game. But that's not what they said, is it? And it's not what they thought either. And again, the results of the game was the subject of what they were interpreting. It was the subject or the symbol. And their own and unique different way of interpreting the results of the game was the actual cause of their feeling experiences. So in that way, in that case, two different people gained two completely different experiences from what they thought was the same cause, the results of the game. But that's not what they said, or that's not what they thought. And that's what's so important. So here's proof that we're not relating to what we think we're relating to. My God, do you think that would be a problem for humanity if we're not relating to what we think we're relating to when we come away with our feelings and experiences? My hell, what bigger problem could we have? In the farmer's case, he's relating to his own and problematic defining mind context about the raining event. And then secondly, his own non-problematic or happy defining mind context about the rain the second time. He's relating to what the raining event means for him, but he believes he's relating to what the event is. Did you get that? He's relating to what the raining event means for him, but he believes he's relating to what the event is. The raining event made me upset. Oh, wait a minute, now the raining event is making me happy. Did you get that? That's what he thinks he's relating to, the raining event. He's relating to what the rain means for him in both cases, but he thinks he's relating to what the rain is. He thinks he's relating to the raining event itself, and alone and by itself, too. That makes me upset. Wait a minute, now that makes me happy. Well, what about your own problematic or non-problematic or happy way of thinking about the rain? See, that never enters in to our thinking because we've added those two together and come out with what happened. We add in our own defining mind context about what happened into what happened, but we come away saying what happened caused me to be upset. And that's what we're doing pretty much every day and nearly all day long. All of us are doing that pretty much every day and all day long. So once again, the rain or the raining event is the subject or the symbol, but not the cause of anyone's feelings or experiences. But only a tiny few people on earth understand that, and have no practice with it. See, I've had practice with it. I've been studying this for more than 25 years. I have a lot of practice with it, and so, well, I'll read on here. The raining event can only be the raining event, nothing more and nothing less. It's what it is and nothing else. And it's the same way with whatever you think is causing you to be upset or to be happy. It can only be what it is. It's your interpretation that makes the difference. But again, you're not regarding that at all. Do you understand that whatever we think is causing our feelings and experiences needs to be interpreted to be experienced? Think about it. Do you understand that whatever we think is causing our feelings and experiences needs to be interpreted to be experienced? Do you get that? That's why little pre-programmed children never have mental or emotional problems. You know, a problem for them is a dirty diaper or a hungry belly or not having their toys to play with or their blanket or whatever. You know, and so their defining mind contexts are, they have almost no problematic defining mind contexts except when it comes to those things, because they haven't received their programming yet. They have to know what things mean for them before they, ever so sadly, pick up on those meanings and definitions and begin a whole lifetime of unreal problems to one degree or another. I'm going to say that again. They have to know what things mean for them before they, ever so sadly, pick up on those meanings and definitions and begin a whole lifetime of unreal problems to one degree or another. And those beliefs, the belief systems that they pick up from is the world is affecting us, or what happens in the world affects my feelings and experiences, and that's entirely false. Yet upon interpreting, yet upon interpreting the subject or the symbol, yet upon interpreting it or that, what it or that, whatever it or that is the subject or the symbol, we come away with our feelings and experiences coming from how we chose to interpret it or that. And it or that remains what it or that actually is or was, and nothing else. It's always it or that. It isn't something else other than it or that, unless it's the truth, because we relate to the truth. And also, if it's our own defining mind context, we do relate to our own defining mind context about things, but usually it or that is almost always some material aspect, something that happened, something we notice in the material world, you see. And here's what A Course in Miracles, which is my main mentor, says about the people who head up our sociological and psychological institutions, at least here in the USA. You see, they don't even regard a defining mind context. Go ahead and look that up on Google. You won't find it. It comes out in, defining or else mind context or something like that, but not a defining mind context. It isn't even in our language, for Christ's sake. Anyway, this is what A Course in Miracles says about these people who head up our sociological and psychological institutions. The separated ones have invented many cures for what they believe to be the ills of the world. But the one thing they do not do is to question the reality of a problem. Yet its effects cannot be cured because the problem is not real. Again, the separated ones have invented many cures for what they believe to be the ills of the world. But the one thing they do not do is to question the reality of a problem. Yet its effects cannot be cured because the problem is not real. How do you cure the effects of a problem that's not real? You don't, do you? We don't cure the effects of problems that are not real. We come up with people agreements and different things like this, or else usually a problem comes and then another problem comes to take its place, and so that one sort of fades away, and that's all that happens with problems in our life. Or else we do some manipulation of the conditions, and that doesn't make any difference either. It's always our interpretations that cause our experience. Thus, in therapy, this is the tragic thing here. When these psychological and sociological people don't understand that we're relating to our own defining mind contexts instead of what those defining mind contexts are about, the subject or the symbol. Thus, in therapy, both the supposed victim and the traditionally educated therapists are doing therapy based on problematic conditions or problematic events, when only problematic interpretations are able to cause problematic feelings or problematic experiences. Did you get that? Thus, in therapy, both the supposed victim and the traditionally educated therapist are doing therapy based on problematic conditions and problematic events, when only problematic interpretations are able to cause problematic feelings or problematic experiences. And so, the best they can do is try to settle the victim down and say, well, maybe eventually you can forgive the person. No, you need to forgive your own defining mind context about whatever thing is that you had a problem with, or you thought you had a problem with, That's why it's so tragic that these traditionally educated people don't even line up cause and effect when they do therapy with their clients. Ignorance is no excuse for these people. They ought to have realized these facts long ago. But what did they do? They assimilated tradition. Let me read this first. Ignorance is no excuse for these people. They ought to have realized these facts long ago. If I had my way, I'd put them in prison, at least until they learn what the hell is causing what when it comes to human feelings and human experiences. What they did is they did the same thing most educated people do. They assimilated traditional information for the purpose of passing traditional tests, to get traditionally graded and traditionally entitled to go out into a very traditional world. What is a traditional world? It's a world where we've had to endure at least 3,000 wars in our known 5,000-year history, and certainly with no end in sight. In fact, the last century was the bloodiest of all centuries, with not one single year going by when we weren't fighting some damnable war. And it's all based on all comes from the idea that the world is affecting us, and that our interpretations about the world don't have a goddamn thing to do with our experience, when our interpretations about the world have everything to do with our experience. Okay? How should we be thinking? How should we be talking? In order to be honest and responsible with our feelings and experiences, how should we be thinking and how should we be talking in order to be honest and responsible with our feelings and experiences? So what should the farmer have said or thought to be honest and responsible with his resulting feelings? He ought to have said, I became upset by using a problematic interpretation when considering the raining event the first time, and I became happy by using a non-problematic or happy interpretation when reconsidering the raining event the second time. That's what he ought to have said. Again, he ought to have said, I became upset by using a problematic interpretation when considering the raining event the first time, and I became happy by using a non-problematic or happy interpretation when reconsidering the raining event the second time. Or he could have said, the first way I interpreted the rain caused me to be upset, and the second way I reinterpreted the rain caused me to be happy instead. And now he's being honest and responsible, you see. But not, the rain makes me upset. Wait a minute. Now that I've been reminded of my crops in the ground, now the rain is making me happy. In other words, the world is affecting me. Do you see any attachment to the world here, folks? Hello, you salvation people. Do you see any attachment to the world here? And that's what you ought to say, and especially the way you ought to think every time you are tempted to say, this makes me happy and that makes me upset. This person, condition, or event makes me happy, and that person, thing, condition, or event makes me upset. You ought to be saying the same thing that I talked about with the farmer golfer ought to have said, to be honest and responsible. You ought to be saying the same thing. You'd be correcting your mind many times during the day if you did that. And when we say or think that enough, you see, I've practiced it's called right-minded thinking. Getting cause and effect lined up correctly is right-minded thinking. And when we say or think that way enough, we'll just stop being upset over anything at all, except when the care and keeping of bodies is the issue. That's the only exception that we would ever use non-problematic or problematic interpretations, is when the care and keeping of bodies is the issue. The mental stuff is all non-problematic. Bodies, need to be taken care of, and especially the Earth's environment. Because we're not going to have any bodies around if we don't take care of the Earth's environment. But the situation is that humanity is ever so deeply stuck in the overall and almost all-inclusive mindset of this person, thing, condition, or event makes me happy, but that person, thing, condition, or event makes me upset. And we're all saying that all together. We've thought that way and spoken that way for so long and so consistently often, and with nobody correcting us ever, that it's driven us insane. And I mean insane in the literal sense. Insane in the literal sense. But nearly all of us are insane at the same time and in the same way. And so how could we recognize just how much damage we do to ourselves and others as we go on about our daily activities? For me now, and because I've been studying this human thought reversal problem for the last 25 passionate years from my main mentor, which is A Course in Miracles, that's where I got the information from. And when I read or hear on the news that someone, for instance, this is a for instance, that someone under the age of 18 was sexually involved with someone over the age of 18 in the fondling of genitals, and even if one person was 12 years old and the other person was 40 years old, even with that age gap, and for educated and supposedly intelligent people to be promoting the idea that the child's innocence has been stolen, that the child has been profoundly violated and profoundly victimized, incidentally, by the very same kinds of human activities that the child's parents do as often as they get a chance to. They can't wait to get home to rip each other's clothes off and fly into each other's bodies and crotches and everything. Sex this way, sex that way, and good for them. Good for them. Spice up your sex life, Whatever you want to do, as long as the harming of bodies is not the issue. And probably far more than just the fondling of genitals that might have happened between someone under the age of 18 and someone over the age of 18. Anyway, I'm truly sure that nearly the whole of our social world society has gone crazy. And I mean insanely crazy. My God. Judge Thomas Lindbergh here in Yavapai County has sent people away who non-violent, non-forcing sex offenders away for 150 years, because he believes that the event causes the experiences, and he's not regarding people's interpretations, the same as nearly everyone else is. And we can't solve problems that are not real. You see, when they go to therapy, how do you can't solve a problem that's not real, duh. For this reversing of cause and effect not only applies to sexual matters, and I'm talking about nonviolent and non-forcing sexual matters, it applies to nearly everything anyone says or thinks during their entire day. We're all locked up in this. That's why Jesus, somebody asked him, why are you here? And he says, I have come to free the captives. I've come to free the prisoners, because we're locked up and imprisoned in our own problematic definitions and meanings. And, just like we got lost in a game or something, it's like being lost in a dramatic dream, self-identified as the dreamer in the dream, when dreamers can only be the dreamer of the dream. You see, that's the way. In fact, it's exactly that, and precisely that. Did you get me? It's like being lost in a dramatic dream, self-identified as the dreamer in the dream. When dreamers can only be the dreamer of the dream. In fact, it's exactly that, and precisely that. The Bible, self-identified as the dreamer in the dream. I can't. Let's see. I lost my thought right there. Okay, the Bible tells us that Adam fell into a deep sleep, and never does the Bible give any references that Adam ever awakened from his deep sleep. And here we all are. And yet Genesis gives Adam's lineage. You know that, or at least people that read the Bible know that Genesis gives Adam's lineage down to New Testament times, which ties us into the deep sleep of Adam. And it never says that he woke up. Thus, all of us are going around lying. I said all of us, or nearly all of us at least, are going around lying about the cause of our own feelings and experiences, and we're caught up in that lie so much and so often that we then try to figure our way out of problems, both individually and collectively, coming from this massively disturbing lie: the world is affecting me, or us. So here's the actual reversing of cause and effect that was happening with the farmer golfer. The first time he considered the raining event, he used a problematic way of thinking about the rain, or a problematic defining mind context about the rain. And so he received a problematic experience, in saying the rain is making me upset. And so, he was experiencing a false cause. He thought the rain was making him upset. And again, almost every human being would agree with that phony cause-effect thinking process. Why wouldn't the rain make you upset if you can't play golf in the rain? But it still doesn't. It's true that it isn't very fun to be able to play golf in the rain, but it's still not what was making him upset when he said it was. So the actual mind mechanics here is this. He was putting his sense of self, because we don't operate as a self on planet Earth in 3 dimensions. We operate as various senses of ourself. And so he was putting his sense of self at the effect, and he was doing this in his mind, by the way, He was putting his sense of self at the effect of his own problematic defining mind context about the rain, causing him to receive a problematic experience. That's the mind mechanics, But he didn't consider his own problematic way of thinking about the rain at all. He instead blamed the rain for causing him to be upset. I know this is more repetition, but are you beginning to see the massive problem? This misplacing of the cause of our own feelings and experiences? My God, it's so, oh, it's just so, I choose to be so frustrated about this because everybody is caught up in the same lie but me and a few others that probably aren't vocal and that they don't have passion with it like I do. Maybe more clearly, about the farmer golfer, he made the rain what it was for him. That was his, he made the rain what it was for him through his first interpretation about it. And so that defining mind context was his own creation. He created his own defining mind context, and that was the cause. He's the creator of that particular mind context. Thus, he is responsible for what he was making of the rain. But he didn't think so. He thought the rain was responsible for his feelings. And so that, as the actual cause, caused him the resulting feeling experience. But he said and thought, this rain is upsetting me. I know this sounds repetition, but boy, do you ever need do you need to have to go through this over 1,000,000 times in your mind, because 1,000,000 times, no, way more than 1,000,000 times in your mind, you've lied about it. And so you need to start undoing all of this mess of lies that are in your mind, both for your sake, your children's sake, and for the sake of humanity. Meanwhile, the rain, as I mentioned before, can only be what it actually is. The raining event, that and that alone. It's the subject or the symbol, and so is everything you think is the cause of your feelings and experience. I'm saying everything you think causes your feelings and experiences is not the cause at all, not one tiny iota. Everything you think causes your feelings and experiences is not the cause, and not one iota the cause. You're never correct about the cause of your experiences. Never. Do you hear me? You're never correct about the cause of your experiences, not ever. Those aspects are always and only the subject or the symbol that you're judging or considering or thinking about. Why is this so massively important? That's the next little thing here, and almost to the end here. It's because attachment to the material world is causing us to cycle in what could be called time loops, or some call it reincarnation. It causes us to cycle in these time loops. And unfortunately, people think it's a destiny or whatever, but all it is that we need to correct our mind. Lao Tzu in the year 600 BC said, if you correct your mind, the rest of your life will fall into place. He might have gone on to say, and you'll stop reincarnating too. In other words, you'll get on top of things. You'll realize that you're doing this, and you'll get on top of it. So you won't be found in the same thing when you find your self-conscious awareness somewhere else, because your self-conscious awareness can only be where your belief systems are, at least until we come clean on the whole thing, and I won't go into that right now. And so we are the boss, so to speak, and our portion of the mass mind is our facilitator of our belief systems. As Jesus said, as you believe, so shall it be done unto you. Or, as you believe, so shall you experience what you're believing. He might have added on, and so stop believing what you don't want to experience. Hello? As I said, he might have added, I'm sure he talked about it sometime along the line, and so stop believing what you don't want to experience. It's as though our mind is just going along with the idea that we're playing games, which it is. We're once removed from all of this, and so it has to be either a game or a dream. It's the deep sleep of Adam, but it also plays out like a game. It's as though our mind is just going along with the idea that we're playing games, and so it gives us the experience of our beliefs about the game, or the game rule experiences. So please, for the sake of the whole of humanity, please get this. Enough to make a difference that you did get it. Please help me, help all of us out of these mind messes that we just keep cycling in. And so thanks a lot for listening to this, and I hope you listen to others that I have here as well.